Humans versus ChatGPT, Battle of the Brains, Understanding, Inference, and Innovation.
Artificial intelligence, including ChatGPT, has made impressive strides lately, to the point where it can now understand and infer from human language better than ever before. ChatGPT-4 is not just a language expert, but also a math whiz, scoring an impressive 700 on the ISA math.
What led to ChatGPT progress? To understand this, let's examine how traditional machine learning predicts used car prices.
Firstly, let us assume brands of cars and the number of years used dominate the used car prices.
In the sales records, we found that the price of the first car, a Ford 2015 model, was $23,995.
In the sales records, we found that the price of a 2013 Toyota car was $15,000.
In the sales records, we found that the price of a 2013 Nissan car was $8,000. We may have millions of records in the sales data.
How can we estimate the price of a 2016 used Subaru car? There are many methods we could use, but for today, we will not focus on modeling car prices instead. We will use a very simple method to estimate the price of the car, just to make you feel comfortable.
Let's take the example of three 2016 Subaru used cars with prices of $8,000, $10,000, and $12,000. By averaging these prices, we can estimate that the car will be sold for $10,000.
Here, we have two variables, brand and the number of years used for each car. We have two values for each variable.
Very importantly, we need prices for the cars in the sales records. Giving the price of each car is what we call labeling. We can imagine that the more records we have with brand, year, and price the label, the more accurate the price estimate we will get. Let me summarize the key points we will discuss in this session.
For traditional machine learning, can the machine ask questions by itself? The answer is no. Humans must create the question. Then, for traditional machine learning, can the machine understand the human language? For example, could you please estimate my 2016 Subaru car's price given the following history sales data?
No, the machine could not understand what you said. For traditional machine learning, you would need to create a table as the input for the machine learning program, and the table must have a predefined format. The last key question is, can machine learning make inferences?
Yes, it can. Otherwise, it would not be considered machine learning. However, it is important to note that the questions must be predefined, and each record needs to have a label that corresponds to the question. The question should convey the same meaning as the label in order for the model to predict the desired output accurately.
Now you understand the progress of ChatGPT compared to traditional machine learning. Firstly, ChatGPT can understand natural language. Additionally, the questions don't have to be predefined and the input data doesn't have to be in a predefined format. For example, we can ask a question like, I am 30 years old. My age is twice that of my brother. How old will my brother be in 10 years?
As you can see, ChatGPT is smarter than traditional machine learning. It performed two steps of inference. The first step was to determine that your brother's age is 15 years. The second step was to calculate that in 10 years, your brother will be 25 years old. It's very impressive that ChatGPT can think like a human. Why is that? Is this because ChatGPT uses different strategies compared to traditional predefined input and output machine learning?
The answer is no. ChatGPT is still using the same strategies as traditional machine learning. It still uses a training dataset, but it is a huge dataset containing 570 GB of data obtained from books, web texts, Wikipedia, articles, and other pieces of writing on the internet. Secondly, ChatGPT uses 175 billion variables, whereas the used car price modeling, we only use two variables.
Did ChatGPT use labeled data? Yes, it did use labeled data. However, it automatically labeled the data. This is the key reason why it can work on very large data sets.
Let me explain the basic principle of how ChatGPT labeled the huge data automatically. For example, there is a sentence in a book, I am a teacher. How did ChatGPT label it?
To make it easy to explain, let's assign each word a number from 1 to 6, including the period as a word.
The first step is to take the first word I as the input and mark the second word am as the label.
The second step is to take the first two words, I am, as the input and marks the third word, hey, as the label.
The third step, it takes the first three words, I am a, as the input and marks the fourth word, teacher, as the label.
The fourth step involves taking the first four words, I am a math, as the input and labeling the fifth word, teacher, as the label.
The fifth step is it takes the first five words, I am a math teacher, as the input and marks the sixth word, period, as the label. Thus, a sentence of 6 words generates 5 records. Note that this method was not first invented by ChatGPT.
In fact, based on these datasets, the results can sometimes be very ridiculous. To prevent this, ChatGPT still employs humans to further improve its performance. For example, you can ask ChatGPT to write 5 poems praising your wife.
After generating the poems, humans rated each one, and ChatGPT used these scores to fine-tune its parameters. This demonstrates that ChatGPT is still knowledge-based, and there are no major differences from traditional machine learning.
Here, I want to emphasize that good performance is based on huge data, and a huge model performance begins to improve from 10 billion parameters. With about 100 billion parameters, the performance can reach 60 to 70%.
Now we know that, based on huge knowledge, machines are starting to understand human language and do inference. The hot question is, can a machine become creative like a human? To understand this question, let us investigate how a creative idea is generated by humans.
Richard Feynman, a renowned physicist, famously said, I learned very early the difference between knowing the name of something and knowing something. He also emphasized the importance of asking questions in the process of learning and problem solving. In one of his lectures, he stated, I would rather have questions that can't be answered than answers that can't be questioned. This quote highlights the idea that asking the right questions is more important than having the answer to a question, as it can lead to a deeper understanding and more effective problem solving.
Can ChatGPT ask questions? No. It depends on human questions.
Let us try if ChatGPT can ask creative questions. From its answers, it seems not. In the future, artificial intelligence may have the ability to ask questions by itself. Now let us go to the next question. How are creative ideas generated by humans?
You may hear the story about it took 2,774 attempts to arrive at the bamboo filament that made Edison's light bulbs a commercial success. It means that to get an idea, humans practice a lot and get success through tries and errors. Can ChatGPT solve a question through practice? The answer is no.
And you imagine 3 robot scientists working together to prove ChatGPT several assumptions.
In 1905, Einstein wrote a paper on the special theory of relativity, which proposed that the laws of physics are the same for all non-accelerating observers, and that the speed of light is constant in all inertial frames of reference.
Later, in 1915, Einstein received a letter from the Dutch physicist Hendrik Lorentz, who pointed out that Einstein's theory was not consistent with the principles of classical mechanics. This led Einstein to refine his theory and develop the general theory of relativity, which introduced the concept of spacetime curvature and provided a more comprehensive explanation of gravity. Communication among humans promotes mutual validation, mutual inspiration, and mutual corroboration.
Now there is no GPT community to commute with each other to improve their thoughts. Can you imagine 2 robots discussing a hot scientific question? Practice and communications are normal methods to generate a new idea. There is a third mode, the epiphany.
In the mid-19th century, Elias Howe was struggling to invent the sewing machine that could create a lock stitch, a strong and precise stitch that was essential for mass-producing clothing. Despite years of effort, he could not figure out how to design a machine that could make this stitch.
One night, Howe had a vivid dream in which he was taken prisoner by a group of natives in a foreign land.
As he looked around his cell, he noticed that the spears the natives carried all had a small hole near the tip. He realized that this hole was the key to creating the lock stitch he had been trying to invent. When he woke up, Howe immediately went to his workshop and created a prototype of a sewing machine that incorporated a small hole near the needle, which allowed a second thread to pass through and create the lock stitch. This invention revolutionized the textile industry and paved the way for mass-produced clothing.
Another famous example of an epiphany in science is the story of Isaac Newton and the apple. which everyone knows this story. The story goes that while sitting under an apple tree, Newton was struck on the head by a falling apple, which led him to contemplate the nature of gravity and ultimately led to his discovery of the laws of motion.
We know that the current ChatGPT modeling is based on big data. An epiphany in science refers to a sudden realization or insight, with a small amount of data, that leads to a significant discovery or breakthrough in a particular field of study.
Can you imagine a robot can get an idea of gravity when an apple hits its head? Here, I do not want to draw any conclusions, but you see the gap between human wisdom and AI. Let us watch the fast progress of AI.
If you do like my channel, X Science, please subscribe, comment, share the videos with your friends, and like them. Thanks for taking the time to watch this topic. I hope you guys have a wonderful day.